Okay, getting ready to start. Getting ready to start. Hey, I want to welcome everybody to the August meeting of the Cowcatcher Division. We got a great program today for us. I want to introduce our speaker, Marita. Uh, Marita Richards is going to be our speaker today. She's presenting a clinic on the Pullman Company. Um, she and her husband have joined us. Her son is watching online, and of course, her brother, um, Bob Mangrum, is our whistle editor. He's on the Zoom call. So welcome. As always, I want to give David Crumpton a chance to make some announcements regarding the Texas Western.
Thank you, Dick. We're glad to have everybody here. Anybody here for the first time? Couple. Okay, great. Make sure before you get out of here today that you take a little tour around the layout and check us out. If you have any questions about what you're looking at, we have signs posted around that says this is what you're seeing. So take your time to look around the layout if you haven't seen it before. If you've been here several times, we're making changes and additions weekly. So walk around the layout, see if you can see the new things that we've done. We're very, very happy with our progress. Of course, model railroading always goes slower than you want it to go, but hey, when you get finished, you have nothing else to do, right?
Right.
So anyway, we're glad you're here. Please enjoy your time here. We're glad you came. Glad you asked that question. I think we have a few left. We have a few memberships available. If you have questions, if you think you might want to join this august body, Jay Waters is our CAO. He's sitting at the back table. He's got his hand up. If you don't know Jay, he's waving back there. He will fill you in on the requirements of joining and give you paperwork if you're interested. We can always use highly skilled modelers, can't we? Or yeah, we're willing to train. Okay.
Or anybody with a checkbook, right? Okay, thank you, David. David Grind's still on vacation, so I'm doing the treasury report. I know I'm going to have to kick him off the. It's just sitting at PNC Bank. Don't worry. The July opening balance was 6914. We spent $837 last month. We had income of 224, and our ending balance is $66,330.31. The CD balance is still 23,013.75. Couple of things I want. Jim Archer, you're coordinating our Pay It Forward module. Do you want to make a kind of bring the group up to speed on what's going on with that?
Yes, at this juncture, next weekend, we're going to bring it up here, do some tidying up, make sure it's all fixed and working right. It sounds like there might be some of the framework might be a little bent or something. So we're going to work on that, get that all around and ready. And then it'll be delivered to the show and set up and ready to go when the show starts. So that's where we're at. It gives us a month to get it fixed up since it was actually created last year. So we hopefully just need to do some fixing and get it up and running. So that's where we're at.
Okay, Jim, thank you very much. We also have another program going on at the Plano Train Show, and that is the Junior Engineer Academy. And Deb or Russell, you want to update the group on that?
Follow up for Jim. One of the things we did a while back here at Forest Hill, we did a small layout for kids and they really enjoyed it. So we wanted to get the youth more involved in what we got going on the train show. So if you see this little blue box over to the side, that is a 4-foot by 3-foot layout that the kids will be able to operate. There'll be 2 switches on it where they got to make a train up and they will get a little hat and a certificate. But it's, the kids walk through the train show and they're always told not to touch, don't touch, don't touch. Now we're going to give them the opportunity to touch and play and have a good time and hopefully introduce them into the wonderful hobby we're in. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing.
And while the kids are standing in line, we can talk to their parents about memberships in NMRA.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you, Russell. As I mentioned last month, I had talked about the contest room and the fact that I volunteered at the contest room and got a big kick out of judging and learned a lot about judging. And I'm going to ask this same question as I asked last month. How many people have completed their freight shed? We got 3 or 4 people, 4 people. And how many people would like to bring it to the September meeting and we could go through a mock judging of that freight shed to kind of get a feel for, Daryl, you and I, is Thomas. Okay, we got more. We got about 8 people. Okay, good. So we're going to have at the end of the September meeting, we're going to have a mock judging of the work on the freight shed to get everybody more familiar with how NMRA judges models, and it will help you in future contest rooms and in future modeling. So put that on your calendar. Okay, so besides the guests here, do we have how many people are viewing the show on the Zoom call? I want to welcome them. Don Hummel, thanks for watching or tuning in.
Hello, Reggie Thomas.
I hope you enjoy your sister's presentation. And Thomas Richards, thanks you for joining us. And who's the trainmeister?
Lee Bangma, Division 3.
Okay, Lee, thank you very much for joining us.
Yep.
We're not kicking D3 guys out. Yeah. Hit him over the head, Thomas. Okay,
Yeah,
so
I'm
welcome
Division
and
3.
thank you for joining us on Zoom.
Hello.
Couple of upcoming events coming. Don't forget the Austin Train Show come up on August 23rd through the 24th at the Palmer Center. And then we have the Central Mod Train Show and RPM meet, and that's coming up in September, the week before the Plano Train Show. And then, of course, we have the Plano Train Show coming up at the end of September. And details of all these events and other events are on the website, cowcatcherdivision.org. So please visit the website for more information. So let's go into various announcements. So, Dwayne, do you have some announcements? You got any certificates to give out?
I do. So something that Dick alluded to there about getting a chance to get involved in the judging in the contest room, and I'm sure most of you have heard me say this on more than one occasion, but if you really, really want to get better at what you do, I always encourage you guys to get involved in the AP, but if you really want to take it to the next level, learn how to do an evaluation. Because whether we do it back here in the back during a meeting, we come out and we look at it at your house, we do it at a division, at a regional show, we do it at the national, the scoring is the same. It's the same point system. It's, 87.5 out of 125, and it's always the same rules. So the point of this, and Dick now has had that little eye-opening experience, is it teaches you how to look at a model in a completely different way. Because as a modeler, you get to working on a project and we all get very tunnel focused and you start seeing what you think you see and not what you really see. And that was something that, I had a real bad problem with early on. And it's for those of you who've done any IT work at all, trying to find a bug in a piece of code, you find that you can't see it and somebody walks up behind you and goes, why is there a period right there? And it's the same kind of thing. If you can learn to step back and look at it objectively and look at it through that lens of how someone who's going to evaluate your work, you'll start seeing things that you'll go back and you'll correct. And that is what makes you a better modeler. So I really encourage anybody that wants to get involved whenever we're scoring something back here and you want to sit in, definitely come do it. You want to join in, even better. So we're always looking to train new people. We'll take them, however you want to do it. Deb's worked with us a couple of times now, and we've had some good times in the contest room. It's always a lot of fun. You'll get to see a lot of different work, and like I say, we're willing to train you as we move along. So apologies for not being here last month. Mr. Palmer had his car in the shop. I was going to bring my son's car over, and it overheated as I left the house. So, but at any rate, better late than never. So first off, we have for prototype modeler, Mr. Jay Waters. Yay. If you haven't seen the plant back there, go take a look. This is a really nice piece of work. Did a great job with it. And this is one, if you're sitting there thinking, you know, I don't know where to begin. Jay, congratulations. Nice job. If you're wondering where to begin, or if you have a small start but wondering where to go next, take a hard look at Prototype Modeler. Even if you're not a prototype modeler as a whole, I don't. I model a fictitious railroad. I lean toward a prototype, but I'm a proto freelance is what they call it. But with Prototype Modeler, so much of the work that you do in that overlaps into all the other categories. So the scenery that you put into the scene gets to count toward your square footage of scenery. The track work you put down counts toward all the linear track work you have to have for civil. If you've got turnouts and crossovers and crossings and whatever else, all that could count toward your hand laid stuff for civil. You draw up how it's all wired and you make it run, all that thing can count for electrical. All the structures that are in it count for structures. All the freight cars are in it count for freight cars. If you put motive power on it, it counts for motive power. If you write articles about it, put it on the internet, blog about it, and whatever else, all that can count for author. It is literally something that if you pick the right subject material, you could go from nothing to MMR on one project as long as it's big enough. So really give that one some thought. If you've got any questions on that one, come hit me up. It's the newest one of the bunch, which is part of the reason why it hasn't been given out more than most, but it over the years has continued to be the least handed out one of them all. Now, the other one of that is volunteer. And I've always loved the fact that it shows the caliber of the people involved in this hobby that we hand out volunteer almost twice as much as everything else because everybody's willing to step up and lend a hand and help make meetings like this go smoothly. So, but yeah, next on the list, he's going to have to walk from all the way over there, Dick Brannon for his electrical engineering.
Thank you.
Congrats, Bob.
Yep.
Cool.
Appreciate it.
All right. That's number 2, 3?
3, I think.
3. A good man. Next, coming to you all the way from behind the screen, Mr. Cranda. Yeah. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Well, in this case, Mr. Cranda's got his volunteer.
Way to go, David.
That's off. Okay. Cool. Mr. Archer, front and center.
Coming all the way from the back of the room.
Yeah. And the guy that had to have a Greyhound to get here. Golden
Thank you,
Spike.
sir.
You betcha. All right. For those not familiar with Golden Spike, this is the gateway drug to the achievement program. There's very little that you have to do. You got to have something like 2 foot by 4 foot. You have to display a certain number of pieces. It doesn't have to be merit evaluated. It doesn't have to score 87.5 points. It just has to show that you have the basic skill set required to be a model railroader, which everybody in this room can qualify for. And you can get one more than once if you are a glutton for punishment. Right up until you become MMR, and then you're no longer eligible. So if you've got something at the house that you've got some scenery on that's at least 2 foot by 4 foot, give me a call, give Mike a call. This is something we can actually do on a Zoom call, Facebook call, whatever, iPhone, whatever your favorite technology piece is. We can do those online, evaluate it real quick, sign the paperwork. I'll print you one and have it next month. So, we're going to be evaluating a, model in here for scenery. We're going to be evaluating Mr. Cowell's final model for MMR. I took a quick look at it. Oh, yeah, big time. Yeah, congrats. It doesn't have numbers yet Quick glance, we're thinking 84, 85, maybe, No, this is going to score really well, and we're going to get a chance to throw it up on the layout and see it run. So right now, the last MMR number given out was 801. So we're really starting to add them on. And to give you an idea too, from November, I think it was, of 61 when the program started until March of 2007, it took us that long to get to 391. We doubled my number last year in less than 20 years. So that says a lot to folks who like to go out and crack the whip on y'all to get you to play ball with us. But it says a lot about what you guys are doing too, and that you're really wanting to invest some time and get better at your craft and get involved with it. Again, I always say the same thing. It will make you a better modeler. I guarantee it. That's a better guarantee than Men's Warehouse, by the way. So if you got any questions, hit me up. Happy to help. Happy to help you plan your journey down through all of this. If you've got a couple of certs and not sure where to go next, definitely hit me up and let's talk. All right, sir. Yeah, or Mike for that matter. Yeah, Mike's your division rep. So give Mike a call, and Mike will be happy to help you out. And if he doesn't know the answer, he can call me. And if I don't know the answer, we both have Ray's phone number. We can get it straight from the source. So. But yeah, I talked with our new LSR president, and I will be hanging on to the LSR's regional AP chair for the next foreseeable future. So 13 years and counting. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, thank you. So like I say, I'll be happy to help if you got any questions.
Well, speaking of cracking the whip, Mike, you got any comments on the division AP efforts? And first of all, I want to thank Mike. He was in here a couple months ago, and he encouraged a number of people to submit QSRs, SOQs for their certificates. So, Mike, thank you. And
in the Wheel of Fortune fashion,
you want to encourage us to do some more?
Yes, and let's see. In my little catalog of people that are doing things right now, I think Mr. Cook is working on some stuff. I know Mr. Pearson is working on some stuff. Mr. Ogden is almost ready to submit a couple of things. Looks like Mr. Cranda's back there holding up stuff that he's fixing to submit. We've got Ed McGinley today. It's turning in his scenery. Jim Archer is going to have his scenery turned in. And Mr. Cowles is getting his final locomotive done. And by the way, we were talking a minute ago that the least achieved. Oh, and Mr. Garfield is turning in some paperwork today. So we're getting a lot more people moving down the path. Mr. Cowles' locomotive is an outstanding piece. Everybody needs to look at it. And he becomes, I think, our 14th MMR in our division from the history of the division. So congratulations on that. And this is from some guy. And Daryl, I want to ask you this question in front of everybody. Okay. Dwayne and I, yeah, exactly. Put him on the spot. Dwayne and I were having this conversation last night. Up until about 2 years ago, you had zero interest in the AP 1 year ago. One certificate. Yeah.
And we had to beat you up to get that.
Yeah. And something flipped the switch. What was it? What was it? Oh, okay. Well, it works then. Okay. Hey, all right.
Yeah,
Let's hear it for badgering. Okay. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the term. Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise known as waterboarding or something like that.
But again, it's like I know the Giffords are working on stuff. So you guys just hang in there and keep plowing away. We're getting this is a really good month. That was a bunch of certificates to hand out. Now I guess it was a backlog too, but
a little bit. So
but
that
that's
actually
not
should
a
have been handed
problem.
out last month. And we actually have one more, but he's not with us. So I haven't printed it yet. Eric Smith also has his golden spike coming.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah.
Cool. So congratulations. Mike Walters has got some stuff coming in. I think Steckler, you got some stuff coming in pretty soon. Okay, well, we'll need to get that fixed. There's that badgering part again.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, thanks,
Poke,
thanks, Dick.
prod.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Is anybody having problems with something on their layout or what they're modeling? This is a good time to ask. On your layout or in the model railroading realm of anybody having any issues they need some help with? You got 50 experts in the room here who may be able to give you a different way of looking at it, some insight into something you're having, issue with. You're about 3 months late on that, aren't you? So everybody's got everything's running well. Nobody's got any issues with a model or anything like that, huh? Mr. Garfield, you got something? You got a big smile on your face, like everything's perfect on the railroad, huh? Okay, that's good. Tips or tricks? Who's got some tips or tricks? Mike?
So I have learned the hard way that, ask me how I know this. When you take so many of the models that we have today, I'm going to restart this. So many of the models that we have today come and people just grab them and put them on the layout and assume that everything is right with them straight out of the box, whether it's a piece of rolling stock or a locomotive. And I have learned, with the help of some people badgering me, that the cars are not always, and I'm putting my hand on his shoulder right here, that cars do not meet standards a lot of the time. Whether the wheel sets are out of gauge on locomotives and or cars, whether the weight is right, whether the coupler height is right for matching. And I'm telling you from the get-go that right now, whenever you come to my layout, we are constantly looking for all of the fallacies and errors that are on the layout that I hastily put on the layout without checking all of that before it went into service. And thanks to Mr. Pearson, we're sorting things out, and he found one yesterday. It was a car that was on the layout that was misweighted. Took it apart, put more weight in it, and off we go. And the operation has gone better with less derailments, better operating, and less frustration once you get all of those cars to standards. And one of the best things you can invest in is one of those little bitty scales, that digital scale, because now you can really fine tune your car weight. That a Katie height gauge for your coupler height gauge, and an NMRA standards gauge. If you don't have one, are we still handing those out?
Yes,
Dick?
we are. To new members, we have an inventory of them right here.
So get you an NMRA standards gauge. If you don't have one, tell Dick. I bet we can still figure out a way to get you one. And that's one of the most important things you can have. So get everything in compliance. Thanks.
Yeah. Let me add to that. You all have probably heard the term DCC friendly turnout. I'm one of the odd ones that will tell you that is a fallacy. And the reason for that is this: what causes a turnout to give you problems isn't the turnout's fault. Usually it's the fact that your wheel sets are out of gauge and the back side of the wheel is touching that open point rail, and it causes a short. And instead of cutting up a $60 turnout, fix the actual problem, not the symptom, and go through and check the wheels on your locomotives and your cars that seem to have the same problem coming through that turnout all the time. And it's much cheaper and a lot safer to replace a wheel set or to re-gauge a set of wheels than it is to take a Dremel to a $60 turnout and risk, messing it up and then having to replace it. Again, fix the actual problem and not the symptoms. My 2 cents.
And we had a clinic from the NMRA about how to use that gauge last year. It's on the website, so you can check it on the website.
Cars think you have to measure everything.
It's got a lot of stuff on it. It's not too big.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so who else has got a tip or a trick? David. You're kind of like our one a month tip or trick guy.
We'll have to pay for
Couple of months ago, I ran across, I found this on Amazon. They sell for 10 to $15. They call it a model paint clip kit. And what it is, I'm not gonna see it here. It's a piece of plastic.
The overhead camera.
The overhead camera's working.
Down back.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Let me hold it sideways.
Yeah.
It's a piece of plastic, has 120 holes, comes with about a dozen and a half of clips on a stick. And what you do, you can use it for painting or electrical. Hang on, I got it in here somewhere. Here we go. And what you do is usually when we paint, we'll put the plastic or whatever it is, finding everything but what I want. I'm not playing pocket pool here. Here we go.
Get you think out there. We're going to paint it.
And I dropped it. It was a little piece of plastic. No, it doesn't.
I got it. I got it.
You see it?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
This LED?
No, that's not it. That's it. Thank you, Dick. Usually I would take a figure or I'm painting a structure, a small piece of structure. You put it on double-sided tape, put it on a painting stick or something. That's kind of a pain. What you do with this, oh, and these come with rubber clips that you put over this so you don't scratch your, whatever it is you're painting. You just put it on, stick it in, and boom. You can paint both sides very easily. If you've got a larger piece, you can use two of them. Like this. You can do the same thing if you're soldering. I've only got one piece of wire here, but if you're soldering something at the bench, you can just use these clips to hold it from wherever, both sides, and then just solder. This was, like I said, this was $10 on Amazon. They've got kits from $10 to $15. They're all the same thing. I think I've used this more than any other tool outside of a clipper, a piece of plastic clipper. So this one is made by Evermodel. It's a model painting clip kit, and it is a real time saver. And it's also works very well. Anyway, that's it.
Paint the base of that thing white, you can see the holes a lot easier and be able to plug it.
Listen, if we did things easy, you know, we'd all have MRMRs by now, wouldn't we?
Okay, David, thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, you can find them in multiple places. I've also seen them at Hobbytown. And anyway, that's it.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Was that Tom Pearson? Did he have his hand up?
I'll be out of here in a sec.
We'll talk a little bit about adjusting the point tension on the older style Pecos. Okay, I assume many of you have a Peco turnout on hand or installed. And every once in a while, the spring tension kind of goes away and you need to make a small adjustment. And the neat thing is they provide for that. If you look closely here, just past the points, there's a little T-shaped piece of plastic. Okay, and that little T-shaped piece of plastic is held in by two metal clips, one on each side. And if in fact you want to increase the point tension, you move the little piece of plastic toward the points. And if I want to reduce it, like for example, maybe you've got a tortoise underneath it and it's too strong, you can move it the other way or remove the spring. But anyway, that's just another little thing that you can, they build into their first generation turnouts. I don't have enough experience with the new ones to know if they do the spring the same way or not, but do they? But anyway, just FYI.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody else? Okay. So show and tell. Let's go into show and tell right now. David Crumpton.
This is more of a tale rather than a show. I don't know if any of you surf Facebook from time to time. I do. Sometimes there's junk. Sometimes there's some real nuggets. Well, I found a good nugget. This came from a fine scale miniatures heading, and a guy posted it, and his comment was, how to be a better model builder. And there's 5 things here. And I thought, well, this is great, not only for model building, but for just about everything that we do in life. So listen to these. Number 1, if you don't ask, the answer will always be no. Number 2, if you don't go after what you want, you will never have it. Number 3, if you don't step forward, you will always stay in the same place. Number 4, if you don't believe in yourself, no one else will either. Number 5, if you don't make time for what matters, life will fill it with things that don't matter. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Very good. Any other show and tell? Daryl.
This was the source of my badgering that
Oh, wow.
truthfully, about 2 years ago, I had one certificate, but I was informed by a couple of people that, yeah, that all I had to do was write up some paperwork because I'd already done a lot of the other stuff like chief dispatcher and electrical and all sorts of things like that. So really and truly, a lot of us are in the same boat. We've already done that type thing, but you need to sit down and write it up. So there could be a lot more certificates for that. But again, this was a little locomotive. The story on it is that my logging company back here, when they first got started, had no money, but they needed a light slit switcher to help out with delivering cargo and things around the layout. So they found a wrecked GE 44 tonner at Santa Fe that had been hit in the back, crushed the frame, crushed the rear engine, crushed the hood, the truck. So they bought the parts, took it to their shop, and this is what their shop built for the railroad. Yeah. So I don't know if how we can see that or not, but it's, yeah, let's do it this way. There we go. All right. I'll look at it this way. There we go. So you can see some of the Santa Fe heritage on it still showing through the old green paint. There's some black and silver stripes starting to throw through the light paint that's worn off. On this side, on the hood, you can see the Santa Fe logos starting to show through the paint here. It has had 10 years of really hard work with basically nothing to make it pretty again. This was built, it has a brass channel frame. It has Northwest Shortline motorized truck and an unpowered truck, both by Northwest Shortline, that are in this. I wrote up a little book to go with it. So light reading of I think it's 47 pages, but anyway, it was a lot of fun to build. The frame I scratch built, everything was drawn up in my CAD program first. I converted all of the cab, the hood, the radiator all over into Fusion 360 and then printed it on my resin printer at home. So all the cab, hood, and everything's printed 3D. Everything else pretty much is brass on it. So it's all been made out of brass. Even the trucks are 3 pieces and they were printed on the printer. The springs in them are actually KD coupler springs. You think it's hard to get one of those in the coupler? You ought to try to poke it in that little bitty pock. There's 3 or 4 loose in my shop that are just free springs nowadays. They've been freed, but anyway, hopefully I'll get an 88. Yes, yeah, it's free springs. Hopefully I'll get an 88 on it anyway.
I know that was documented, so I think that, we don't get.
I think
an 84 should be dropped.
Yeah.
The points he's gonna do is finish a letter for that paint job, paint down and all that.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else got anything for show and tell? Thank you, Daryl.
Yeah.
Okay. So since we don't have anybody with show and tell, Daryl, as long as you're up here, you want to talk about promoting the hobby, the program?
Give me a second.
Okay, well, as you remember from last month's meeting, we had Daryl presented a couple of programs that we're working on, that he and his committee is working on to promote the hobby. And one is the tent that we'll do at the no, not the fair, but it Mayfest, at Mayfest. Yes, thank you. And then another one is for a display at libraries.
Ready? Nope, that's not it.
Well, that's a pretty ugly group right there.
Yeah. All right, so here's what we came up with. That I've come up with. Steve gave me some input and something. No, yes, this is not what it says. Okay. That Steve came up with on the canopy. So this is what Steve helped me come up with as far as layout and everything. I had Cowcatcher division up here, but a lot of people don't know what Cowcatcher division is. But model railroading is fun is what we're trying to express. This is actual QR code that's been set up by Jared for me. So this goes right now, if you scan it, it goes to basically a blank page that's on our Cowcatcher website, but you can't get to it any other way other than go through this. It's not on the website's menu or anything like that. There's nothing in there really right at the moment, but that's going to be the QR code. People will be able to walk up to the booth and they will be able to scan that. So it limits the amount of papers and things that we have to have in this booth when we're presenting different places. So this is some pictures that I've come up with. These are hard to do. Get the guy's hand. I've come up with model railroading is fun. I added for the entire family, for the whole family. There's all kinds of things for people to do. Some pictures here, logos for us down here. The inside panel is different from the other side. So you have panels from both sides here. And yeah, no, I forget how to turn him back off. But anyway, Steve sent me, or this was a picture I took at our old version 1 of Texas Western during one of our open houses, which I thought was a great picture of Dad showing the kiddo. This is, I think, a very good investment. This is $1,240 is shown, and that would have a wheeled bag to go with it so that it's easier to cart around and things like that. So comments, questions, we can adjust this some more, and Steve and I will probably get together with Dick and we'll make a final layout on it and then we'd order it.
Yeah, the real issue here is we want to kind of show it to the group one more time. And I want to get a vote on what the membership thinks to see if we spend roughly $1,300 to purchase this thing.
Other than Mayfest, what other kind of events do you plan on using this at?
We
We
could,
use it 24 hours of Saginaw. We could set up out there for people
Would
that,
this be at the Plano train?
it could be,
we could set it up in the
could be. I
building.
don't know if they allow tents like that at the show, but I think that. What, Chris?
The fact that it's a tent is not a problem, it just has to fit the space.
Yeah, it's
10 by 10
It's 10 by
space.
10, so it'll fit into the space easy.
8 by
Is it?
30 inches.
No, we got a space of 10 by 20 today, this month.
Say it, the spaces are based on tables, so 10 feet is not it's space.
But we're special. Couldn't we get an extra 2 feet?
Yeah, I think we can get that.
Inches between it and the next layout, no, it won't fit.
But we also can look for, there's train fests in different towns that we could go set this up at. Where they have a small town, Cleburne or whatever has these places that we could go set up this. And I think it's very eye-catching, and I think people would come up to it just to see. And talk to
And the
us.
reason we picked Mayfest too is this is a thing we have not participated in forever. And it gets a lot of people. It's a different demographic than we've seen in the past. A lot of families, and it might be a good opportunity. It might be a bust. Who knows? We got to try. Mike Mackey.
Joe Rios has little grande trains. And it's a trackless train thing that he goes around with. He does a lot of festivals and things like that. I bet we could coordinate with him and find out where he's booked to find out those little festivals and places like that. And probably set up our booth right next to the train thing. It would be a nice correlation.
Okay, good point. Good point. David.
Next summer, when we got into this trip here, her place put up this Forest Park Railroad. At their main station.
Yeah, we'd have to get their permission, I'm sure, but yeah, but that would be a good spot.
It's gonna work with them as well.
Could set it up on a Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so that's an overview of the thing. So I want to put this up. Your board of directors is recommending we do this, but we'll leave it to the membership. So all in favor, raise your hand, please. Okay, it looks like it's almost unanimous, so we'll just go with that.
Right.
And then we're also including in this is a small display case that will be at a library.
Yeah, let me see if I can find that real quick. This display case is a clear acrylic case. And we talked about it a little bit earlier. The one I've looked at is 36 inches long, 14 inches deep, and I think 14 inches tall. It comes with a base that we can screw down so that the top doesn't come off the base. But what we want to do is make a typical model railroad scene building, a little bit of track, some cars on it. And again, it would have the QR code on the front. Trip would be to find a library to let us set it up there on their desk or up on one of the tables so that people can see it. And then anybody that's interested simply scans the QR code. And so we do not have to have flyers and things that we continually, make sure nobody's thrown them away or they ran out. They could simply come up, scan the QR code. It will take them to our website, which then will explain what we're about, the fun that we have at model railroading. That's what this is supposed to be, is fun. And the fun of model railroading and camaraderie and all the things that you can learn. And then from there will be links that take us directly to the Cowcatcher website, NMRA website, and perhaps some websites from some of the model railroads around town. So I think it's worth doing. I think we just want to buy one. The cases are about $250, and I figure for another couple $100 at the very outside, we can do the scenery and put a short model train in it and some buildings and have something that we can display.
Okay. So Daryl, thank you very much. Any other questions? David Caranda? David Caranda? I'm sorry, who? Reggie Thompson. Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Reggie. Okay, so let's go into the deal or dud, and we got a little comment on deal or dud. You're gonna get an IOU on deal or dud, but we'll still have you can redeem your IOU for a certificate next month. So, Trapper, you want to come up here and do this?
Who did that? Everybody got a coupon? Cause I found an extra coupon. Yours. And I got mine. That's it. I knew you. Found it. All right.
So the good thing about Grind not being here, you can't win.
Right.
Okay, the number is, the last three digits is 471.
Congratulations. I'll take number 2 and go. Yeah, I'm Bill down on the job there.
Sure, IOU.
Good. I owe me $10.
Okay, $10 IOU. Okay, another number, second number. Yeah, Steele, you want to pull it? Be my guest.
476.
Jeez, we had 471.
That's no.
Come on, Deborah.
Come on.
Either one of the duds. The
Sorry. Hold on. Hold on.
455. 455. Okay, Jim, blank or 3?
Blank.
There you go. $25 gift certificate from Model Railroad Crossing. And don't forget to thank them for the gift certificates or the IOUs.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, impossible. The last three digits are 495. 495.
Thomas? Thank y'all.
Yeah, I know. Maybe we can make it a little easier to open. There you go. Way to go, Thomas.
That's fine. What'd you get?
$15 gift certificate, I bet. From
I'll use $15.
$15 from IOU from Model Railroad Crossing.
$40 next month.
Okay, good. So that's concludes the business program, so to speak. So let's take it's about 10 to 11. Oh, Mike? Of course.
I've been contacted to sell a layout. This layout belonged to August Racono, who used to come to our meetings occasionally, passed away in December. His wife contacted me because we share a housekeeper. I've been over to see it. It's a 14 by 18 foot L-shaped DCC layout that is beautifully and completely scenic.
What's L?
HO. And she's looking to sell the layout. Haven't determined a price or anything, but if anybody would like it or would know of someone who might, we'd very much appreciate anybody's help.
Okay. Would you put that on Groups IO?
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, Chris.
So that reminded me of perhaps you guys remember Steve Barkley, past president of the LSR. Steve, a couple years ago, fell and hit his head and has been in assisted living for kind of like if he had Alzheimer's or dementia. So 6 weeks or so ago, I went down and we took his layout down, and I have most of it in my section house. Includes DCC and cars, locomotives, a lot of stuff I'm going to take to Plano. But if anybody's looking for anything, especially like DCC, Digitrax, it's mostly HO. But the electronics, it doesn't matter. The electrons do not care if you're HO or O scale or M scale. They just anyway. So it reminded me of that. But also, he was a Northern Pacific modeler and a CB&Q modeler. So not a lot of that in Texas. But that's one of the reasons I picked up the collection, is because we had similar modeling interests. Lots of brass, tons of brass. And he also had some UP and some things like that. So anyway, I've got a list of all the brass, if anybody's interested in looking over the brass. But other than that, boxes and boxes of cars and things like that. So
Okay.
Let me
Thank you, Chris. Okay, so let's take about a 10-minute break. We'll start up again about 11:05. And Marita Richards will present the history of the Pullman Company.
Why?
Okay, I want to introduce Marita Richards. She's going to do a clinic on the history of the Pullman Company. She's joined by her husband, who's here somewhere. There he is. And I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Melvin? So, Maria, it's all yours.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you very much for the invitation. I will say I've been around metal railroads all my life. My father was into it. My brothers are still into it. My husband and son are into it, and I'm into it too. So I'd like to do operations, but I also like to explore the history of some of the things that are related to the railroad industry and how the railroad developed here in the United States. How many of y'all have passenger trains on your layouts or here? Okay. Have you ever thought about what the Pullman car, and you've heard that name all your life probably. What do they do, and what does it really look like inside that Pullman car if I was a miniature person? What is it about, and where did it come from? So I would like to talk about the history, maybe not everything there is to know about it, but a lot of it when I researched the history of the Pullman Company. So let's begin. Slide 1 is... Okay. You showed it to me. And yes, I've spoke at several conventions and at Grapevine and there it is.
Hang on.
Okay. The title of my...
Stop for a minute. It's not sharing to the audience.
Oh, yeah, my brother at home would like to see this.
Yeah.
But yes, I've done quite a few clinics in the last few years at conventions, and this is one I did at the National Convention in Grapevine. And as Dwayne Richardson said, I'm kind of working on a couple of my certificates too, so maybe not so much the technical stuff, but other things. All right, so it's called Travel and Safety and Comfort, A History of the Pullman Company. Next. There it is. The Pullman Company served railroads for over 100 years. It was one of the longest lived companies in American history. It served all of North America, including Canada and Mexico, as they opened up their countries to railroad and passenger trains. But Pullman's not a company like we think of as Union Pacific or Santa Fe or anything like that. It owned no tracks except what was in their shops, and it had no locomotives. The Pullman Company was rather nicknamed a hotel on wheels, and very big operation in its heyday, which was in the 1920s. And there's some statistics from the 1920s. Their employees included porters, attendants, conductors, maids, and the ones in the offices and the regional commissaries. It was a very labor-intensive organization because they had to operate such a large company, but they did it with reliability and pride. And that is one thing I think we're lack today in a lot of things. But then that was their thing. They wanted to make sure that they were a name people could trust. Before 1960, there were thousands of sleeping cars that were treated to legendary on-board service. The Pullman Company owned or leased its large fleet of sleeping and parlor cars that was made available to railroads under a contract. If you rode a Pullman, though, there was always extra fare to do so. And a lot of the Pullmans in the early days operated out of the Grand Central Terminal at New York City. Next. Who was George Pullman? Well, here's a picture of him. He lived way back there, born in 1831 in New York. His father was a carpenter, and he taught him how to move structures along the Erie Canal. And then when his father got older, Pullman took over his father's business in 1853. He opened a similar business to raise buildings above the Lake Michigan floodplain. There were multi-story buildings, and he lifted them and moved them to another place. And that was probably quite an achievement for the 1850s. Then Pullman began to explore ideas of what he could do with this business experience that he had, and he went to the railroad. He knew it was up and coming. This entrepreneur had a grand vision for the railroad, and with his knowledge of finances and marketing, it gave him a head start above others in the sleeping car business. Now, there was some sleeping cars before Pullman created his. The first sleeping car is believed to have been the Chambersburg, introduced in the 1838 on the Cumberland Valley Railroad, which later was part of the Pennsy Railroad. And it is believed that there were seats for day travel and tiered bunks for the optional lying down at night. It was very, very basic. It was a wooden rectangle car, only 34 feet long and 8 feet wide, and it ran a distance of 52 miles. Now, I'm not sure why they needed it to be able to sleep, but I guess it went back and forth day and night. During the 1840s and 50s, railroads and commissaries operated sleeping cars over an expanding network. But Pullman, he had a bigger idea in mind. He observed the railroads and traveled on these types of sleeping cars, and he was convinced that people would pay more if they had a comfortable seat and amenities, like at a hotel on wheels. Next. The Pioneer. This was Pullman's first attempt at a sleeping car, and he called it the Pioneer. It was built at the Chicago and Alton Railroad shops in 1863. His car was taller and wider than the previous manufacturers had made to accommodate a fold-away upper berth, and it was a much better design. It was very expensive to make, though, and of course the Civil War was on, and inflation was sky high, so it was very expensive to build. Now, there was other pioneers in this field of sleeping cars at this time. They were Henry Meyer, Theodore Woodruff, Eli Wheeler, and William Mann. Now, railroad mileage more than doubled from 1865 to 1875. So in that interim period, Pullman, by 1867, owned 48 sleeping cars and had operating contracts with Chicago and Alton Railroad, CB&Q, Chicago Great Western, and the Great Western Railway of Canada. Next. Now, here's a picture of an interior of the Pullman Palace Car 1867. That's when he also bought the Palace Car Company of Illinois. Now, it had eye-catching color scheme, and you can't see it, but there was green beneath the window sash, yellow above the sash, and a red letterboard. So they nicknamed it the Yellow Kid. And he introduced this hotel car, he was still calling it, in 1867 by adding a kitchen within the car so he could serve meals to people at their seats. At this point, of course, he was looking for rich customers. The picture on the right shows it's on a turntable, and this one on the left is an interior. And you maybe not exactly 1860, a little bit later, but you can see the berths up there that they were doing at that time. Next. By 1868, though, Pullman was more ambitious, and he built a luxurious full-service restaurant with kitchen and dining room on wheels. He named it Delmonico after the famous New York restaurant, and he entered it in service on the Chicago and Alton Railroad. Pullman gave the public a whole new level of quality service, and with all the new travelers, especially the wealthy, he wanted to serve them and give them the very best, like they have in New York City, for instance. He believed, Pullman, that the railroad was headed for growth, and this was the way to go. Early on, employees or passengers made their own berths, but by 1870, Pullman began to staff his cars with his own trained conductors. And as you see here, even in the dining room, you can see some of the ornate things and berths even. The freeing of slaves by Lincoln gave Pullman a larger labor pool. Initially, only black males served as porters. And we'll discuss that more in just a minute. The next slide shows Pullman Town. Right now, it's a national monument, historic park, and the state of Illinois bought it in 2015, and it's a museum. But in 1870, Pullman had his own cars built near his new headquarters in Chicago. It was a state-of-the-art facility for the time. The Pullman Car Works opened in 1881 and employed 2,000 people. And thus, he built the town of Pullman, a utopian town. It was built because it had its own housing, schools, libraries, parks. And by 1893, the town had a population of 12,000 people. But there was no bars except at the Hotel Florence, which is on the left. And it was the centerpiece of the town. But people that worked there and lived there, they couldn't go drink at the hotel. And as I said, they eventually state bought it, and now it's on display with a lot of history about the Pullman and the Porters. Next. All right, by 1874, Pullman began expanding its market to luxury daytime travel. So he introduced the parlor car with a salon and deep cushion reclining and revolving chairs. And as you can see, those chairs kind of swivel around so people could swivel around and talk or look out the window. Now, the parlor cars he named for women or flowers. The next slide shows the vestibule. And we've all seen those and things. And I have pictures of when we went to Branson and rode the dinner train of a vestibule. That one on the right, and then there's one I found. But it's where the two cars connect. This was in 1887, and before the invention of the vestibule, passengers had to stay in the car they rode in, or they had to pass between the cars on boards between the cars. I didn't know that, but it would have been risky and dangerous and scary, I think. So some people never left their car. But the vestibule incorporates a flexible enclosed passageway between the cars, and that way they can move safely from one car to the other. This one's pictures from between 1905 and 1910, and it was the late wood area of a Pullman car, kind of fancy there within the sides, but it showed how they could walk from one car to the other. And, you know, we've done that on trains, but didn't even think about it, but somebody did invent it. And all those people on the train needed food, not just those who were in the hotel car. So this made it a way for them to get one car to another. And Pincy Limited was the first railroad to have the first all vestibule train. And they paid extra fare, though, for it because it was Pullman. Next. Some other improvements made by Pullman and his company were electric lights. They started putting that in all their cars that they made. No more candles, so it wasn't fire hazard or smelly. The invention of the light bulb was in 1881, and in 3 years, electric lights were on the Pincy Railroad, so they were up there trying to get ahead too. Steam heat, that was another one that came along. Wood and coal stoves early on had heated the passengers in the car, but by 1865, the Baker heater hot water system was invented. And it was widespread use until the 1890s, when a way was found to send steam from the locomotive back through the train to heat cars in the consist, modified to a low-pressure vapor system by 1910. Isn't it marvelous, all these things that developed because of people in the railroad? And that steam heat also helped in the dining cars as they were developed, because they could have steam tables for the food. And then lastly, they had air conditioning began in the 1930s in the train cars, long before a lot of homes had that. Next. Well, by 1888, Pullman was the dominant player in the sleeping car business. So some railroads operated their own sleeping car and related services and didn't use Pullman cars. So there was other brands out there. Other manufacturers for the sleeping cars were Budd. You probably heard of Budd, and American Car and Foundry Company. Now, some railroads preferred to do the service themselves through Pullman cars, like Santa Fe. But the Panic and Depression of 1893 hurt Pullman's business. He refused to make reductions in the home rents back there in Pullman Town, and he also cut wages. So the company experienced its first large-scale labor unrest. Workers began striking in May 1894, and trains came to a standstill. And this strike it eventually broke the spirit of Mr. Pullman, and he died in 1897 of a heart attack. So, next. The new president of the Pullman Company was son of President Abraham Lincoln, Robert Todd Lincoln. I thought that was interesting. In 1899, Cornelius Vanderbilt II died. He was the key backer of the Wagner Palace Car Company. So Pullman just absorbed their company and bought them out. So that was the last competitor that Pullman had. So under Lincoln, 1900, the Pullman companies reorganized. The Gilded Age was over, so they thought, let's make a little bit simpler cars, more uniform, less decoration, because now we're going to serve not just the rich people, but normal, everyday people will want to ride the train. By the 1940s, the Pullman came so widely known and used in some applications, it had become a public domain, spelled with a lower P. Like my Pullman train case. Some of you commented that you'd seen these before. Well, I got a set of luggage before I went to college, and I had the train case and 2 other suitcases. This is Lady Baltimore, but I had those, and when we were going through things, I said, no, I'm going to save that because it's very unique, because they created it so that you could take just the things you need into your roomette or wherever you were staying on the train, your makeup and your hairbrush and nightgown. You didn't have to have the big old suitcase in that smaller room. So it really was a pretty cool thing that Pullman did. And that's why I think it's hard for the companies today, especially, they can't emulate what Pullman did with service and quality and so forth. And then also underneath the table here is my husband's father's train case from the 1950s or 40s. Mine's from 1965, about when I got it. Okay, are we on 13? Yeah, okay. Well, we also have the types of cars that were used. The wood cars, of course, from the late 19th century. course, you all have heard of the wood construction was 1859 to 1910. Steel or heavyweight was 1910 to 1934. And 1934 to 1968 was lightweight or streamlined. So you can see right away the differences even between these two. The wood on the left, we've seen those at places you can ride trains almost. And then on the right, the heavyweight was made more of steel and much safer. And so at this point in the early 1900s, Pullman didn't make any more wood cars. The 1920s was the era of the heavyweight. They're on the right. And the observation car had an oversized window, as you can see, and a brass rail platform on the back. And it was the end of the train consist as well. And you've seen pictures of presidents standing on the back of things like that, waving in history. Okay, the next one. Car names by Pullman during the heavyweight. Well, he didn't use numbers like we do, of course, for freight cars and so forth. He used names. And you can see an example there, like MC prefix meant a 12-section, one drawing room car, named for McCaskill. And so you always knew that if it was an MC, it has 12 sections and one drawing room. Just picture this in your little Pullman card out. And the lake prefix meant 10 sections, one drawing room, and 2 compartments. And so one was named Lake Pepin. But there was also cars named for people like Mark Twain or musicians, Beethoven, Custer, Cape Cod even. And so that was how they kept up with their cars, though, was those kinds of names and then prefixes that meant different things. Okay, next. But then we get into, in the 30s, the lightweight and streamlined. And I remember a movie about a train that looked just like that. This was the single most important change in American passengers, was these 1930 streamlined looking cars. Futuristic shapes. Also the new motive power, diesel electric. And the cars were made of lightweight aluminum, but also introduced the following. A single bedroom was done in 1927, a double bedroom in 1930, a duplex single room 1931. And they were all like Art Deco, like we see in some of the buildings in New York City. But the biggest introduction of a car and most popular was in 1937 with the roomette. And roomettes used the river prefix, which meant 10 roomettes and 6 double bedrooms. They also used a city prefix and had 17 roomettes, 1 section, or in other words, 18 roomettes. And we'll talk about the roomettes in just a second. But the next slide shows you the observation car. We have one of these on our layout. They were shiny aluminum, weighed 48 tons. And at the end of this observation car, there was a rounded in, they called it a solarium. And at the 1933 Century of Progress Fair, the George Pullman was a 3-car articulated jointed train. It had an engine with baggage sleeper and a passenger coach car. And these became prototypes for future streamlined Pullmans. Next. Now, he also kind of got into dining cars, Mr. Pullman, with his cars. 1920s were a boom time for Pullman with over 22,000 employees, we said. But they also wanted the less exotic trains so they could sell more tickets. And so they still had 12 sections, and that meant upper and lower berths. Coach seating in the daytime and then upper and lower berths at night. But then the dining car was also popular under Robert Todd Lincoln. They had some pretty china, as you see there on the right, and their own china, distinctive orange flowered, called Indian tree. And this was used during the golden years, 1922 to 1926. And later on, they just used plain white china, nothing special. And those without full diners would have like some tables and chairs and part of the parlor car. And then at the back, there was a lounge. They did, though, do like Fred Harvey did with fine linen, fine china, fine crystal, fine silverware. Everything was popular and up to date and impressive. Now, hotel style cars, people did not have to leave their car due to their room and dining car was all in one car. And dining cars named for hotels began service in 1868, but by 1920s, this changed due to railroad operated diners. And as I said, a lot of them, like Fred Harvey and Santa Fe, they had their own. And by the 30s, Pullman was losing money on diners, so they didn't do as much into the dining car business. They kind of got out of that and went back to their Pullman sleepers. Next. Beginning, though, in the 1930s, the company Bud, which I said made sleeping cars, and Pullman would become embroiled in a federal antitrust court case. Now, Pullman wasn't innocent in this because remember, he bought up all those other companies and they kind of had a monopoly on everything. So, Pullman Standard Car Manufacturing Company, created in 1934, is a subsidiary of Pullman. And Pullman Standard was the product of Pullman's acquisition of Standard Car Steel in 1930s. So they're still buying up other car companies. They built passenger cars at 2 locations. Most came from Chicago and others were in Massachusetts. And Pullman operated all these sleeping cars until the lawsuit. So after the war in July of 1940, the U.S. filed a civil suit in Philadelphia against Pullman. Sherman Antitrust Act. You probably heard of that. You remember that from history. Pullman had a monopoly, as I just said. And finally, in May 1944, Pullman had to choose which business to keep and sell the other half of the business, either the sleeping car operation or the manufacturing of the cars. So the operating arm was sold to a group of railroads over which the cars ran, but they contracted out the Pullman porters to work the cars. Pullman chose to keep the manufacturing, so they kept building the Pullman cars. So Pullman furnished the cars as required by the railroad, which in turn sold Pullman tickets along with its own railroad tickets. And so that's where we're saying again that you had to pay extra to ride on a Pullman. Okay, next. Well, that says laundry. Yep, I know you guys don't have to do the laundry probably, but us women do. And we can relate to this. The Pullman Company's real focal point was the operating department. They were responsible for the movement, staffing, supplying, cleaning, servicing, maintenance, repair, and engineering of cars. And they were a very organized system, though. They had storehouses, laundries, and commissaries. The regional commissaries had shops and storerooms, and they were to clean and supply and perform running maintenance of Pullmans. Once again, the Pullman was very interested in being the very best they could in the public eye. So they wanted everything clean and perfect. They were the world's largest housekeeper at that time, with laundry of 284 million pieces of wash per year in the 1920s. And that includes the sheets, pillowcases, blanket, all the bedding, and there was 10 laundry facilities across the U.S. In addition, this part was interesting, all water tanks were flushed every 30 days. They shampooed the carpet every 60 days and cleaned and inspected the air conditioning weekly. Now, the commissaries also stacked the food supplies needed on the Pullman, and so there was a lot of paperwork with all. So their operating arm of their company was very busy. It didn't lack for anything to do. So the next slide shows what is a Pullman car. And I'm sure some of you have seen this at some of the railroad museums around the country. It's always interesting to see. All Pullman trains, as I said, meant superiority and all the best service. Great food, even into the 1950s. They were known for their food and their service. Santa Fe and Super Chief, they were all Pullman trains, and the choice of the Hollywood stars in the late 50s and early 1960s. Prior to World War II, a section was sofa seats facing each other by day and by night made into upper and lower berths with a distinctive heavy green privacy curtain. This is called a section. You can see it there, an old picture with somebody in it, and then this is taken from Douglas, Wyoming, great museum at that town. showing how they had even had a door by that time, so you could be in privacy. The section number was displayed on the wall there, and there was thick mattresses, netting to hold your personal belongings, and the sheet arranged over the windows to screen out dust that was common before air conditioning. So it was formed by a pair of facing seats that could be converted in a lower and upper berth. The upper berth was lowered by the porter with a ladder, and there was a safety security net so he could not roll out of the berth. They also later on included a mirror, a bracket for a portable table, reading and nightlight, hangers, hammocks, or shelves for clothing, and you had crisp, clean linens, soft pillows, and warm blankets, all shielded from the aisle by a heavy curtain. And there was also a call button to call the porter if you needed anything. However, not everybody wanted to be on that top berth. Now, maybe if you were a kid, you did, but as an adult, not as many people wanted to, because you didn't know if the person below you, if it wasn't your family, if they snored or not, or if they made noise. And of course, in the upper berth, it was very hard to get undressed. So by the 1930s, they could only fill 18% of the upper berths. So they thought, we got to think of something else, or we're not going to make our money on each one. This reminds me of a Lauren Hardy movie, which my brother loves, Lauren Hardy, where they're up in the upper berth trying to get undressed, and it's so funny, and it's so true. The next slide shows something from an old World Book, 1954. Shows the bed on wheels, the older one at the top, in the late 50s, 1850s. And then this is how they showed the ladies in the 1950s going to bed at night. And see, there's the number on her curtain. And I guess they weren't afraid. They weren't going to snore either. So, but just another example of how they promoted things. Next. Now, since people weren't willing to sleep on that upper berth, Pullman had to come up with a solution so as not to lose money. So they began to design rooms differently. And in 1937, they created the roomette. I remember hearing that term when I was growing up, roomette. It soon became the most popular selection, especially for the single traveler. There was two types of roomettes, an A and a B, and it gave comfort and privacy to single people, and especially business trip people. Type A had a comfy, soft seat that could be folded down into a bed under the window. There was also a covered toilet and a sliding door or curtain for privacy. Type B was the same, but with a sink that folded down from the wall. Now, the roomette was designed with efficient use of space. And I think that's also where we think of the Pullman train case coming in, because they couldn't take all that stuff in there. Well, it was small, but they wanted to have their necessities with them. The next slide shows type B roomette, and this once again is from the Pullman on the dress parade, which I was able to get a real copy from 1948 of that. And it shows the roomette at the top and how it would look at day and night. Then the other one on the right is a compartment. And then down here was a drawing room, which was, of course, for more people, like 3 people or even a family with small children. Next. As I said, Douglas, Wyoming's got a wonderful train museum. If anybody's ever been up there, it was great. We just happened upon it. And they had a double room with a divider or open. And there's the couch, and there's made in the bed, and there was a divider down the middle of the room. And each side seat had a sink and a toilet under the sink. And it was just perfect for families or even just friends. It was just 2 on each side or 1 in each side. So that was a pretty neat thing that Pullman developed in 1942, the duplex roomette. Now let's talk about the next slide, the Pullman employees. Who were they? Well, as I said, once again, the Pullman Company had high expectations, and a major part of your trip was the service of a professional crew. We might not think of the train crew as being professional, but they were, just like Fred Harvey and his employees. The first is the conductor, pictured on the top, of course. His duty was assigned to a train if 2 or more Pullman-operated cars were in the consist. He also collected and sold tickets. He had record keeping, and he also oversaw at least 12 people and maybe up to 150 passengers. If there was only one Pullman car, then the Pullman conductor's duties were handled by the railroad's car porter. Now, the Pullman also greeted each passenger as they came in, verified their reservation, made sure they were in the right car, the correct accommodation. Nope, one back. There, nope. The company favored young black men with about 25 years of age with at least 5 years of experience. Okay, go to the next one. And that's about you can't see the thing at the top, but it's a note. It was a handbook that they got. And we found this one from the 1952 on the internet, a copy of it. And just look at how they instructed the porters and attendants. Courtesy was emphasized, safety, do things before you were asked, and hard tasks become easy. I mean, they really emphasized precise things to do. And I think we're missing that a lot today in our society. But they did their job. They also talked about how to make a berth up, how to serve the coffee, how to do everything was written down, and they were trained in that to the T. So I think that's very important because they learned how to care for people and the equipment and the supplies, and it just amazing what all they went through. Rigorous training. They also had to learn basics and mechanical stuff. They also each porter tended to between 15 and 20 passengers on an overnight trip. So he was a busy guy. Before the people boarded, he had to make sure the room had towels, soap, clothes hangers. And as the passengers boarded, the porter would greet you, carry your bags, and lead you to your accommodation, stow your bags. You'd answer questions, find lost items, handle emergencies. Had a lot of paperwork to do, but the porters took pride in their work, and they passed it down to the next generation. Now, porters worked long hours with just a modest pay, and they had to rely on tips for extra income. And we know what that's like even today. And in later years, the wages between porters at a parlor and tourist car, they got more money than the regular porters on the Pullmans. So they began to form the Brotherhood of Sleep Car Porters in 1925. But it wasn't until 1937 that the Pullman Company finally recognized this union. When there were fewer trains, they had Pullmans in later years. Some of the Pullman porters transferred to actual other companies like Union Pacific, Santa Fe. Now, there was also some Filipino immigrants were hired beginning in 1925, but when the World War II came around, they didn't serve because people thought, you look like you're Japanese, 1920, women began to start being on the train. They were trained as maids, manicures, help women and their children. 1930s, women were trained as secretaries and stenographers even. And by 1950s, women on trains were more like airline stewardesses or nurses. Next. And there's some of the other duties that the porter did. He did a lot of work. He was busy all night long. And he was a cross between a concierge, bellhop, valet, housekeeper, mechanic, and security guard. So he was a busy guy. And yeah, he did deserve some pay, didn't he? Okay, next. Anybody ever seen one of these blankets? Has Pullman on it? You got one, huh? Yeah, that would be something to have. It was advertising for Pullman. Pullman Company also sold sleep, and there it was, right there on your blanket. It said Pullman. But this wasn't just a cheap or thin blanket. It was a blanket that was made just for the Pullman Company. Single company, so it was all consistent, 100% wool, very quality on it. The porters also knew how to put the blanket on the bed too. They were trained in that. The colors ranged from light rose to tan to green, and chocolate was the color on the heavyweight cars. Now the numbers on there says S20, possibly mean for this particular blanket that it was made in the 1920. But I've read there's slight differences about that, but that was supposed to help a person know when to withdraw it. If it was several years old, oh, well, we need a new one, kind of thing. And especially if it became tattered or threadbare, and they took it off immediately and used it as rags, of course. Now, the blankets were only washed monthly. We would think that's terrible now, wouldn't we? But sheets were washed after every run. So here we have the signature product, Pullman, laid on your bed, by the porter who had made up your bed. Now, advertising, the next slide, was a big thing for Pullman. In 1916, once again, they have emphasized convenience, anticipation, cleanliness, and that's what their big thing was. And that is a copy of my On Dress Parade. But inside there, answered all these kind of questions. And in 1920, they even had pamphlets because people would know, well, how many Pullman cars you have? Or how was the laundry process? They wanted to know these things. And they said, okay, we're going to let you know, public. And so they would give them all that information in these little pamphlets. Now, during the war, Pullman emphasized in their ads responsible, necessary travel because, of course, the troop trains were going around and they needed to have seats for them. Now, I have quite a collection of Pullman ads here, magazine ads that I've gotten from old magazines and so forth. And this is only part of them. I have a whole wall of them. But it was always the emphasis of safety and comfort with Pullman. Now, post-war ads, post-war World War II, emphasized economy accommodations, and they sought the business travel plus the family. But of course, guess what coming after all of World War II? Next. Oh, just wanted to mention that the Pullman did participate in helping move the troops during World War I and II. Even in World War I, the government became the manager of all the nation's railroads due to the war emergency. And they rented the Pullman cars and its personnel so they could run the troop trains during that. But Pullman cooperated and helped them fix up the cars to make 6 bunks in a car. Next. But the decline of the Pullman, we all know what happened, don't we? We're all old enough to remember this. There's some statistics of how many cars they operated in 1945 and then how many they had about 1968. 1947 was the last profitable year for Pullman. That's another reason in 1948 they came out with another On Dress Parade because they were trying to advertise all their amenities and accommodations. But it didn't get the public, of course. And it was kind of sad that the government had taken over the railroad in World War I to move the troops and so forth, and some into World War II. But then what they do, they turned their back on the railroad after World War II because they began to subsidize airlines, highways, waterways. They didn't care about the train. So the railroad became a victim of the way Americans traveled and the demise of the trains. Interstate highway system began in 1955. Domestic jet service really became popular by 1958. And of course, the business travel, they wanted to get to a city faster than a train. They didn't care about the comfort anymore. Next. But here were the successes of the Pullman Company. Excellent organization, attention to detail, reliable safe travel, quality of service, equipment maintenance. They had it, and they were smart. I wish we had more companies like that now. Sometimes I wonder if we don't need to study these older companies to emphasize those things again. And then there's their slogan, safety and company, comfort. But getting there by train is half the fun of any trip. I guess a kid said that probably. You're safe and sure when you travel by Pullman. Costs less than you think. And yes, by then it wasn't that expensive. Airplanes were expensive. And then finally, the history of the Pullman Company marks the best effort of a great American company to offer a transportation service where first class meant so much more than just an extra inch of seat width on the 5-hour flight to somewhere. That's so true. That was a quote by George Welsh, which I think, yeah, he wrote about the Pullman. So the history of the Pullman Company marks the best effort of a great American company to offer a transportation service where first class meant so much more. The Pullman Company earned its reputation by providing convenient, comfortable service on hundreds of secondary trains, not just the large ones. Pullman gave the last best effort of a great American company where first class meant first class. And did you know that Pullman served over 2 generations at least, because they were a 100-year company, maybe 3. Travel by Pullman was a way of life, and it left its mark on our social history and culture. Oh, I wish I had gotten to ride on one. Thank you.
Any questions? Clarence?
Pullman Company had an educational foundation called George M. Pullman Educational Foundation. His middle name was Mortimer. And I know of this because I was a Pullman scholar and had half of my college education paid for by the George M. Pullman Foundation. So, thank you very much.
Very good, Clarence. Any other questions? Okay, Marita, thank you very much. It was very interesting. Appreciate it. And let's give her a big hand. Extremely well done.
You're welcome to come look at anything up here.
Okay, so that concludes our meeting for this month. Of course, we'll have a meeting in September, right before the Plano Train Show. Hope to see you all there. We had a good crowd today. We had about 55 people here. So thank you very much. Oh, and everybody, please help put up chairs. Help out the Texas Western. Thank you very much.